I remember being at church one day with my partner and the pastor saying something derogatory about being queer, and I never went back to that church. This season, I really wanted to explore what it means to be queer, to be Black, and to be a woman, and to be religious. Now, how does intersectionality affect how we define our spiritual preferences? Or how does intersectionality define or inspire how we show up in spiritual and religious spaces? What does it really mean to come out? And how does it feel to prioritize identity and deeply rooted beliefs over the beliefs and expectations from family? That's what this episode is all about. I talked to a couple and I talked to a queer Black woman who is a pastor. It's going to be good, and I'm looking forward to sharing this episode with you, finding religion and spirituality as a queer Black woman.
She likes to talk through the morning where I'm like, let's go straight to God and pray. And she was like, no, let's talk about the day, talk about things. And I appreciate that because it kind of helps us set intentions.
I'm so excited for you to meet Mila. She was actually an assistant on one of my episodes last season. And when I told her that I wanted to do a show about religion as it related to queer Black women, she was like, yo, yes, that's gotta happen. Her and her partner would be so down. So you'll get to meet her and her partner Tia today as they talk about their relationship with the church, how they got into the church, Christianity, all of that. It's so good. And their relationship is so beautiful. I'm so excited for you to meet them.
It's like, this is what I'm hoping for in the day. And
for sure. You gotta figure out your path.
Right.
Speak it into existence.
Yeah. Maybe I could try that more. Setting intentions and then we can pray.
Yeah. Okay. Setting intentions is prayer. So,
you
see me? It sounds good.
That.
What does religion or spirituality mean to you all?
I think that religion, faith, your spirituality is like a map. You know, it gives you direction. Well, I'll speak for myself. For us, I think that our faith in our religion gives us direction and a path and footing on this journey, because you know that's exactly what life is.
Yeah.
It's an obstacle course.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Girl, it is difficult. But I love that you said that because my spirituality helps me with that. What about you? How do you feel about it?
The same thing. I think everybody's journey is different. Your spirituality is going to be heavily based on who you are and what you perceive your own spirit to be, or the spirit of this universe, the world, and how you view faith. And so I think it speaks a lot to the person as an individual, because they can really take you wherever you want it to lead you.
And did you all have challenges in finding that and coming to the answer that you all have?
For sure.
Tell me about it.
Well, I grew up, we both actually grew up in the church heavily, at church multiple days a week, all the time. But it's always been a space that's home, you know? So even for myself, I've always known all my identities, including my queer identity, but I also have always just loved church, and I've loved, being in community with other believers. So I think it's been a lifelong journey. I've spent my whole life in the church, and even in moments I've had to step back for a little bit because I've I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. I've been able to make my way back because I've found spaces with people like myself, and I'm able to understand that we exist in their space in the faith community.
Right, that's beautiful. What about you? Have you had challenges?
For sure. Like I said, we both grew up in the church, but my church was very much so Southern Pentecostal type of church, and so very traditional. And so for me, it took me a while to be okay with my queer identity. At first, I didn't really know what it was. I'm like, this makes me feel some type of way, but see why? So you just don't really know. And so then going to church and hearing that certain things aren't okay, like lesbianism or being gay in general. So you start to condemn yourself internally. And so it just becomes this battle between who you are and what people tell you should be. And so it definitely was hard because it made me feel like I wasn't welcome at my church, but my family ran the church. And so there was a big obstacle there, Tia, you're supposed to be here, but you don't feel like you're supposed to be here. And that has been a huge battle for me all the way up until this year, where I just recently found out, like Mila said, there's a place for us to be queer and love God. And I didn't know places like that existed.
I knew that having a queer Black woman who was also a pastor was going to be super important to this conversation today, which is why I'm excited for you to meet Natasha. Natasha is an associate pastor at a church here in Atlanta, and she is also a queer Black woman. She is also a woman clear on her calling, clear on her purpose, and so willing to share her truth. Meet Natasha. So how does your church, the church that you preach at, how does it differ from the churches that you've been to before?
So I'm the associate pastor of Rise Community Church in Atlanta. I've been the AP for, it'll be 3 years this year.
Congratulations.
My pastor was actually one of my professors. I didn't really anticipate leaving my current church, but then, as being involved in watching it become an actual thing, I was like, oh, this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
It's very open, it's affirming, accepting. Anytime we have a member join, she has them come to the front of the church, they state their name, and then she tells them, welcome to Rise, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And that just the intentionality behind that one line, to me, makes all the difference.
How would you define religion and or spirituality?
Religion and spirituality, I think, are two sometimes conflated terms, and there's been this drive to kind of separate them in some sense, but I think there's a way that both are interconnected. So religion is more so the systemized organization. So we know a lot of times we consider denominations, particularly within the Christian tradition. So you're Methodist, you're Baptist, that whole Episcopal structure, if you will, is more identified with religion. So it's, the rituals, the prayers, the services, the meditations, all in an attempt to be in relationship with God. I think spirituality is just one's process of trying to figure out how they relate to their surrounding world and to this higher power, this higher being. So I think there's some spiritual aspects found within religion, and I think there are ways that people differentiate the two because they don't like some of the habits and patterns that religion has projected onto people.
For people who aren't aware, like when churches are affirming, that means they are welcome of the LGBTQIA community. They affirm who they are as people, and the church I currently attend was recommended to me by my little sister, and she was like, you gotta check it out. I was like, okay. Are you sure? Because I've been church hopping and I still haven't found
Listen,
it.
I've had the same challenge.
For me, I always tell people when they're looking for a spiritual community, a space to grow, it's like dating. Go on some dates. Yeah. See how
church
you feel.
Hop.
Church hop. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. God is pleased with you having desire to find your truth and be in his space. So it's like he's not mad if you go a few different places. He wants you to find your groove and your fit, and he'll lead you there. But
that's beautiful.
it was recommended. I tried it out the first Sunday I was there. The pastor had a whole series that month he spent talking about spirituality and sexuality, and it was just a kiss from God of Mila, I see you. I made you. Live your best life. This is where you need to be. And that's been my church home for the last 4 years. And when I tell you I've been fed, this spirit has been fed and just been affirming in my identity and just honoring God's call for my life,
That is so beautiful. What about you?
Sure.
How'd you come to it? You said Mila,
Mila. So prior to Mila, like I said, I had this struggle between going to church and not feeling like I belonged there. So for me, my spiritual journey kind of happened on my own. It was more so me in my room, studying the Bible, looking at YouTube videos, trying to understand stories. So a lot of my knowledge, a lot of my own learning came from me just doing work by myself because, like I said, I didn't feel like there was a space for me to actually publicly love God and be queer. And so a lot of my learning just came from okay, Tia, you want to understand this more, so you study. I listen to podcasts all the time, and on the way to work, working out, just walking around, just listening to sermons and stuff, and it's definitely beneficial. I definitely feel I appreciate that I have an understanding of the word based on myself and not based off of what somebody else tells me, but it definitely made me feel secluded. And so when Mila and I met, she's like, T, you gotta come to my church and da-da-da. I'm like, I don't know, because I had my own battles with church, or just being in church. And so I went one Sunday. I forgot what the message was, but the second time we went, it was, what was it when the Methodist Church had voted to not support
LGBT rights? And people not allowing queer pastors in the pulpit in the Methodist Church. It was was a tough vote, and they voted for them not to be a part of it. And
Yeah.
my pastor went off.
He went in, and I was like, I'm staying.
So, if I'm a person who is looking for who's having challenges, right, and looking for a space where I can be myself and praise the Lord and, become more like Him, what do you tell that person?
Although it is challenging, it's not impossible. I think a lot of people, because of their experiences with the church, have written the church off altogether. But there are spaces where you can be received. It's just a process of finding them and negotiating what you must have versus what you want to have. So,
Just like dating.
yeah, it really is. It's just like dating. You have to find one that's the right fit. You've got large churches, mega churches, you've got average size churches, you've got small churches.
Right.
My church is on the smaller side, and that's something that I look for because I want to be able to have more one-on-one relationships, because I feel like there's a greater chance for accountability in those settings, as opposed to just being someone who can slip in and slip out.
Right.
But everybody's different. I think, looking for, those key words like open, affirming, and then just letting your spirit kind of trusting your spirit. Like, is this a place, do I feel good while I'm here?
For more episodes of The World Is Ours, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy.